in a further effort to put in as little effort as possible in order to shoot some clips other people might find more amusing, I'm basically going to have to put in the greatest pinch hitters of all time. Cats! Because I don't know, if you don't like cats, or at least looking at cats being themselves, we're probably never going to be friends. Yeah. So yeah, new series. Definitely a maybe on that one, where I talk about places I'd like to visit or have visited and liked, or just have a passing interest in. Okay, this is episode 1 on Malmo, Sweden. Let's go. Hey, XenPuck here. Also introducing my new co-star, my wife's cat, who I call Mr. Fluffy because he's very fluffy. I don't know if you can see that. Say hello. Hello. It's her cat because she's had him for a long time before we met, since he was a kitten. But these days I clean his box, so I feel like that gives me the rights to use his cuteness to my advantage. Do you mind, Mr. Fluffy? Do you? I hope not. Well, in my defense, this is a cat, and I feel like it's mildly more acceptable than using your own, cute little babies or toddlers for the same purpose, right? At least I don't think Mr. Fluffy here is going to complain when he gets to be an adult. I mean, he's already an adult. Let me be clear. He's a middle-aged cat. Okay, that's why he's so large and in charge. All right. So I love travel, and when the pandemic is over, oh boy, I'm itching to just go, right? But for now, let's list some candidates for the next place we'd like to go. But since we have a cat, I'm also curious whether the qualities that would attract me and my wifey would be interesting to Mr. Fluffy as well, right? Or will he get resigned to being, relegated to his grandpa's house, all right? I'm sure he wouldn't mind that, though I do worry if we travel without the cat. Wifey will sigh a lot more than usual. That really can't be helped. Right. So the city to consider today, Malmo. This name, for some reason, reminds me of like a kind of dessert, or maybe like a Ben & Jerry ice cream flavor. By the way, I'm drinking my wife's leftover wine. That's why it's in a glass set that says wifey on it. Okay, so first, let's break down why I like certain geographic locations, right? First is location, right? I mean, I've never been to Sweden. I like visiting the idea of Sweden, but one of my main complaints is because it's in Northern Europe, so I'm like, oh, it must be cold, right? So the good thing about Malmo is that I'm pretty sure this is like its southernmost city, so that's good, right? Second part that I want to note about the location is that it's actually really, really close to Copenhagen, right? I just looked it up. It is right across the bridge, some sort of strait from Copenhagen, which I presume is probably a larger city. I think that's awesome because that means that no matter which city that I'm visiting, either Copenhagen or Malmo, I could just, pop over. I mean, since they're only separated by a bridge, I assume that it's relatively easy to go visit both. Oh, by the way, I'm glad I swaddled Mr. Fluffy in this little nest because he's doing so well. He's not trying to run away yet, but let me not speak too soon. It's only like a minute into this video. Okay, number 2, when would be an ideal time to visit? Still, this is the southernmost city in Sweden, but it is still, in Sweden. So I would imagine that time to visit is probably limited to the summer months, right? I would actually imagine this is very similar to the times that we would go to visit Chicago, because Chicago is like one of the more northern cities, probably one of the bigger northern cities in the US. And Malmo to me is kind of similar in the same spot, but just in Europe, except in the USA, right? Which I don't mind. One could always look for cities, during, especially where we live in Texas, it's really, really, really hot during the summer. So it'd be nice to find another city where the summer months are a little bit more moderate, right? So that we can run away from Texas too. Okay, now, one of my key criterias when it comes to visiting a place. Oh, say hello again, Mr. Fluffy. Oh, he's trapped. He's so confused. He's looking at the ceiling. He doesn't know what is happening. He's so cute. Shakey shake. Sorry, tangent. Food. I've been hearing that the Scandinavians has been on the forefront of the, more nouveau food traditions, at least in the last decade, right? So my expectations for a city like Malmo, which is very modern and apparently relatively diverse, at least compared to the rest of Sweden. So I really have some expectations as to the kind of bougie places that would be present in the city. I am curious whether they love outdoor dining as much as my wife would probably prefer, but since she is mostly Swedish American, I would imagine that the taste probably runs in the culture, right? Especially when they only have a couple of months. That's really nice out of the year. Okay. Oh, how cute! Look at how cute he is. You're so calm. What a good kitty. Anyway, one thing I want to mention about the food. I think they do a lot of cured fish. This is like something that I think our cat would totally be interested in, actually. Even though he is really a picky eater. And I'm curious whether he would like the cured fish rather than, I don't think cat food is that type of preserved, right? Like, I think there's preservatives in most cat food, but not like pickled and curing, that type of process. I don't know whether cats would be into that, but who knows? Maybe he'll get to try it someday. Does that sound good? Does that sound good? Give you a little smooch. There you go. Okay. Actual attractions that I'd be interested in Malmo, right? So I just did a quick Google search on the top. Cat's he's raring to go. He's like, how come I have to stay here? Well, no, just hang out a little longer. We're talking about the attractions of Malmo. So apparently the bridge that connects Copenhagen and Malmo is like the longest land bridge in Europe. That sounds pretty awesome. I looked it up. The top of the bridge is actually very, very unique looking. I'm curious whether they would let me walk the entire length of the bridge, because this is actually a really, really long bridge, and it connects two different countries. So, maybe that would be a thing. I love walking and hiking, so I would totally do that, right? What else is in Malmo? There's like a twisty skyscraper. They're calling it like some sort of twisty torso looking thing. Interesting, but it says there's like residential and commercial properties in it, so that makes me feel less interested, though that means there's probably a really easy and common reason to want to actually get inside of it, right? Since there's commercial, buildings in there or institutions. There's also a castle. There's a Malmo castle that actually looks more like a fort than a mansion, which makes me really happy because I like military history much more than civilian history. Especially, after looking at pictures of like French chateaus that to me just looks like houses, the Malmo castle actually looks like a castle. Very exciting. I would totally go there, right? Obviously, in the city there's a couple of museums. It looks like the emphasis is more on modern art. I'm interested in those. I would totally go to those. Though I feel like with museums, I don't know whether I would devote a whole day to looking at museums or spread them across several days during our trip, right? I see some of the other attractions are things like windmills and churches. I mean, I feel like every single European town has windmills and churches, right? So not as interested in those, but will depend on how long we're actually spending time in Malmo or Copenhagen, right? So like if we're doing a day trip, I would definitely skip these. To be honest, same with some of their more famous parks and town squares, right? I'm like, do these really count as specific attractions? I think like as a tourist, like if you're going to a city for the first time, you won't be able to avoid those even if you tried, right? Like, cause tourists or like major transportation, public transportation just tends to drop you right in the middle of like, say, a green space or especially a town square, right? Though I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put my finger in your ear. Though I think with Mr. Fluffy, if he was going with us, we could put you in the cat backpack that we have bought that has a little window so that he could look outside. Just imagine if we all went for a stroll in the middle of Malmo. You know what I just realized? No, Malmo doesn't just sound like a dessert. Malmo sounds like the sound you make, like meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. Yeah, see? Oh man, this is, I think this is a sign. I totally didn't realize that when I was trying to make this video. Oh, he's looking away, he's looking to escape. Look, I snuzzle you. Look at the camera, please. Look at the camera, please. He doesn't know what a camera is. All right, X Factor. Look, why did I even think of Malmo, right? Out of, all the places in the world, why is that on the top of my mind? Well, as I probably alluded to earlier, my wife's family has some history from here, okay? So, I think it's like her great-grandparents, right? So, at that point, wouldn't it be cool to meet some long-lost relations on that side of the family, right? Though I think I caution against that only because my wifey's side of the family, even in the US, are definitely on like the introverted side. And I heard actual Swedes also have a reputation for being rather reserved. So, oh boy, I don't know what a combination of both her family and the Swedes' reservedness would be like. I think it might get a little icy, let's just call it that, right? Finally, what are our realistic chance of going? I think it's very high because of the family factor. My wife has been there, but I think she would like to spend more time there. Though I would imagine we would probably be visiting Malmo as part of a short trip when we're already doing a much longer European tour, right? Presumably when mainly based out of France, because that's both of our preferences as to like a center, base of operations, right? That trip I'm hoping will happen sooner than later, where I'd like to hang out at least in the European continent for a year. Anyway, where do you guys like to go? Is it in Sweden? Is it in Northern Europe? Is it somewhere further, far, far away? Is it for family reasons, or is it to see nature, or to see technology, or to chase, I don't know, whatever dreams that you've got? Please let me know and tell me what you think of my co-star so far, who basically hasn't done anything except trying to look for a means to escape. Maybe next time I won't swaddle him and see how long he stays then. Anyway, cheers. I'm sorry, Mr. Fluffy, for torturing you like this. You've been really good.